be okay if I did Q&A Saturday with my hat over my face?
It's tomorrow.
The whole thing.
Oh, it's right there. My mystery assistant today. She's being held hostage at the Good Dog.
That is true.
Like, I should do a blasphemy or pass for all the old folks here that remember really old commercials. I won't do the Libby on your table. You know, like it when you're able. Sorry, Libby. Sorry, you inspired a reference to an old, like the official intro?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, it's Sean from The Good Dog, and I've got the lovely Laura Morgan and her hat today. And she's got a little, is it fall yet? No, it's winter still, right?
No, it's, yeah.
And so I can't say fall.
Fall is before winter.
Oh, I'm really good with dogs.
Not so good with dates.
Not so, yeah, the stuff like that. So we're not going anywhere yet.
No.
So this is Q&A Saturday.
Yep.
Which episode?
I don't know.
I want to say
14? Yeah.
Yeah.
14.
Let me do that. Nice. So Q&A 14, we're bumping along. We're getting deep in the episodes here. Almost ready for syndication and early retirement. So right, hold on. So so we got a bunch of questions for you guys, and we're going to jump on in and see if we can't help you out with some doggy answers.
Question number 1. We have Libby. She says, "Hi guys, this might seem like a really odd one, but here goes. Do you know of an e-collar controller that I could hold between my teeth? I'm a wheelchair user, so when I need to correct my dog, a 4-year-old GSD Malamute, I have to take my hand away from pushing the wheelchair in order to press the button on the controller. This means there's a second or two delay between my verbal correction and the e-collar pulse. Not ideal. Tino is reactive on leash, particularly towards other dogs who are walking towards us. I'd like to eventually have him fully off-leash trained and non-reactive to other dogs. I'm working on all the other leadership stuff, adapting it where I have to. Any advice would be appreciated."
Awesome.
Libby,
big props to you for going out and making all this happen.
Awesome.
So many other people are like, I don't have time to train my dogs. And it's a pain in the butt. I love when people have got bigger challenges and they're out there just knocking it down.
Yep.
So no excuses. Awesome. Okay, so here's the thing. Off the top of my head, or even not off the top of my head, after thinking about it, I don't know of an e-collar that will work like that. But I am friends with Greg Van Kuren at e-collar Technologies. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to email him when we get done with the show, and I'm going to ask him specifically about your situation. He's a pretty savvy, smart, creative guy, and I'm going to see if he's got any ideas that might be able to help you out with any of this stuff. So, but what I need is your email. So how's best to get Libby's email?
Email us at thegooddog.la@gmail.com and let us know your email. Well, I guess the email will come through, so we'll see it, and then we'll let you know.
We're new to this email thing.
Yeah.
So do that, Libby, and then I'll make sure I talk to Greg, and I can't guarantee the answers, but if there's anybody that would come up with a workaround or a fix for that, it's Greg. He's pretty darn crafty and awesome. So,
but in the meantime, the cool thing is that that verbal correction has power. So even if, like we tell our clients, if you say the no and your remote is across the room and you say no, and then you go over and you get the remote and you correct, no problem, as long as you're marking the actual behavior. And if he's, I'd love to know how reactive he is, because maybe you just need to go higher on the collar so you don't have to use it as much.
Good points.
Good
points. I do know that with reactivity stuff and like healing stuff, even though marking it always seems to be more effective the closer the actual consequence is to the moment. There's other behaviors it feels like you have a little more latitude, but like Laura's saying, you can mark and correct afterwards, but I think you'll get more value the closer it is.
Could you strap the remote to your handle or your your armrest? Strap it there, so then if you have to take your hand off the wheel, you're just like bang.
Yeah, that could be a solution. There's a lot of times where we're working and if I got my hands full, I've got the remote like this, like a dog show one like this, and I've got it strapped, or not strapped, I've got it
hooked
in
onto
my
a belt.
pocket, or belt. And then so I just reach down and just touch the button, something like that. So that could be something that you use. I don't know what kind of e-collar she's using either.
Yeah.
So Libby, can you also message us what kind of e-collar you're using? Because if it's Dogtra, there's not much Greg can do from e-collar technologies. So, but just email us either way, and we'll see if we can put our heads together and, like Laura said, strapping it on there and being able to hit a button and using some higher levels so you don't have to be bouncing on that button so often. Like she said, is also a good suggestion. If you're having to, who is that back there?
Yeah.
If you're having to correct over and over again, usually it's an indicator that the levels are a bit too low for the dog. So, or you've just got a dog who's out of its mind, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
So, all right, email us.
Cool.
Thanks, Lib.
Thanks, Libby. Okay, question number 2. This is from Katie Myers.
Hey, Katie.
I recently noticed there is one dog that my dog will guard me from. She loves to play with him, but when we're inside, she'll get between us and let out a grumble. I tell her down and make her stay there, and I ignore her. Should I be correcting with the e-collar? I don't understand why she does this, as the dog is one of the nicest and most stable dogs I've met. He's a golden. Thanks for all your great answers and input every Saturday.
You're welcome. So the stable dog she's talking about is not the one that's doing the aggressive stuff or the guarding. I think it's the other dog.
She the one that he guards
is
her
the
from
sweet guy,
the sweet one,
right?
yeah.
It's always the sweet ones that get the short end of the stick.
Always get the short end.
Okay, so let's see. I wrote a couple notes down for you. So you're using e-collar, which is awesome. So I would definitely be correcting with the e-collar. If your dog's conditioned to the e-collar, then your dog knows where the stem's coming from, knows that it's not the other dog correcting him. Now, I would be correcting if you're sitting on your couch and you see the perpetrator staring, posturing, or a combination thereof. If you see anything that's the precursor, the beginning, you never see my hands, the precursor, the lead up, way before there's any kind of actual resource guarding, don't ask the dog to sit, don't ask the dog to down, don't give the dog an incompatible behavior. That's kind of like that's something that gets taught a lot by a lot of trainers. And when you're dealing with attitude, state of mind issues like this, it's not going to give you what you want. All you're going to do is you're going to be avoiding that for the moment, but you're not going to be stopping it in the long run. You're not going to be creating an inhibition against that choice in the future. So if I'm sitting here on my couch and I've got your 2 dogs and my lovely golden mix or whatever is coming towards me, and I see the other one in the middle start to, like right there, I'm going to roll up. I'm going to roll up pretty high. I'm going to nail him. I'm going to say, no, bang. And your dog should go, holy mackerel, what was I thinking? Really what you're trying to interrupt is that thought process of guarding. The thought process, the attitude, the state of mind, the mentality of, I can do this.
Yeah.
I can guard you against another dog. It's just the dog being in a bad space. So, so that leads me also to, what's the affection look like? What's the privileges with, as far as like furniture, bed, couch, personal space of yours? Is the dog on your lap a lot? Is the dog allowed to push into your space and ask for attention? Does the dog get a lot of affection without earning it? Is the dog allowed on the couch? Is the dog allowed on the bed? If so, I would change all of that stuff, because all of those things are mixed messages that cause your dog to feel that he's able to guard. So if you're not doing any of that stuff, then kudos to you. That just means you've got a dog that's got some guarding tendencies, and there are dogs that just are more predisposed to that. But chances are there's something going on in there that's probably in need of a tune-up, which would be access to you, access to the furniture, how much affection, also how much just basic structure you're doing with the dog, how much training you're doing. The dog's just kind of freewheeling around, or are you asking your dog to be in place? Like this dog that's guarding, he should be in place and sitting there for an hour and a half while the golden retriever's mingling around, doing his thing. Yeah, and so the other dog's like, oh wow, I've got some serious rules here. I'm not just the king of the castle. That's really good state of mind stuff for that dog. So correct. So a couple things, right? So correct firm and high, which are one and the same, for the very beginning, tip of the iceberg, slightest change in demeanor from relaxed dog to That's what you correct, and you correct it firm. And then once that happens, once you correct the dog and call the dog away, that's when you say, now I give you a different behavior, right? So previously you're just telling the dog to sit or down or whatever to try and kind of give him an incompatible behavior. First, correct him firmly so he goes, holy crap, I really shouldn't have been doing that. Then call him over, place, and get your butt over there, and you stay there and think about what you've done. Wait till your father gets home. And then beyond that, where else was I going? So we had that. We had
and duration.
Then be doing the actual actual training proactively, right? So place, duration, work, things. Don't just use place as a punishment. Don't use place as just like every time he guards, he gets corrected and goes to place. Place should be something that's a part of this dog's life. He should be doing a lot more structured lockdown stuff than he should be just wandering around freewheeling. And then really check in on your affection, check in on your access to your personal space, and check in on furniture, beds, and couches, and things like that. And turn that stuff around, and you should be able to sort this out. Cool?
Okay, question 3. Dawn says, hi, my question is regarding training multiple dogs. I have 4 dogs, 2 pits, an Aussie, and a 10-year-old Jack Russell.
Goodness gracious.
I'm doing pretty well on basic obedience one at a time, but when they're all together, it's very difficult to get them focused on me. They spread their excitement to each other. Also, I'd like to be able to walk them at least 2 at a time, maybe 3, but they seem to forget all manners when they're walking together. They would all get much longer walks if I could take them together instead of 4 short ones. The 2 pits are on prongs, the Aussie's on a flat, and a harness is on the little Jack Russell. I'm interested in e-collar training, but waiting to layer that onto basic commands we're working on. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Dawn, hi, welcome to the party. Okay, so 4 dogs, and not just like little cream puff dogs. You don't have 4 golden retrievers. You got your hands full over there, Dawn. So we've got 2 pits, an Aussie, and Jack Russell. Woo! Big props to you. So, okay, first thing is that I would get leash and prong on all of those dogs. So one of them is on a harness, one of them is on a flat, and then the other 2 are on prongs. So you're making your life much harder by, even if the others walk pretty nicely on their own, you're telling me that when together you get in the pack dynamic and the excitement's going through the roof, and then you're struggling with your dogs. So all dogs need to be on the same tools, because I don't want you working hard. I want it to be effortless. I want you to be in control. I want you to be empowered. I want you to be able to be on the walk, and regardless of who the perpetrator is that starts to pull or get worked up, you can instantly know and bring them right back down. So I'd go to prongs for all 4 dogs. Inside the house, I'd be doing work. I would be doing at the very least, I would be doing duration place command. You can just leave the leash and prong on all 4 dogs when you're home supervising. Of course, take it off when you leave. But leash and prong on dogs dragging around the house, even if your dogs have got good obedience stuff, the only dogs I would say that you can get away with no leash and prong on in the house are whichever dogs are 100% reliable and never ever challenge you when you ask for something. They come every time. They don't move off a place if you ask for it. They don't get excited by the other dogs. They just do great work. If you're not having that with all 4 of them, then all 4 dogs should be on leash and prong. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt initially, because there's all these leashes dragging around the house, but it's just a temporary thing until you get dogs in the right state of mind. All of them should know how to do duration place command, and then all of them should be rocking the threshold. Watch my videos at www.thegooddog.net, www.thegooddog.net, and click on our free do-it-yourself videos, and you can see the threshold exercise. And I would be doing that firmly with all of your dogs to set the tone. It's one of the notes I have for you is, if you've got pack dynamics going on, you've got dogs that are individually trained well, but when they get together, they get excited and boisterous, then I used to do pack walks, right? So I used to do anywhere from 9 to 14, 15 dogs, something like that. And so you get a lot of pack dynamic excitement stuff. And all I had to do was make sure that at the very beginning of that walk, or my first interaction with each dog, was that I was really firm and set the tone. Not inappropriately, not being unfair to the dog, but you're trying to take some of that arousal out of the dog, right? It's not just about obedience. It's not just about correcting for healing. It's also about when dogs are bubbling at this higher level, like they should be down here, but they're up here like that, everything is harder. They don't feel the leash the same way. They don't feel corrections the same way. They don't hear you the same way. And they don't react the same way. Everything is escalated and compromised. So I would Set the tone with each one of your dogs that's intense. Bring them down to a much calmer state. That means do the threshold exercise, and anybody that tries to move through that doorway gets a really firm correction that says, holy crap, I really got to pay attention to mom. Then you start your walk, and anybody that starts pulling immediately gets firm stuff to where you're just like, look, guys, I don't know what you're thinking, but we're not going to walk like this. This is mom's walk, and you're going to all behave yourselves impeccably. So that said, that's 4 dogs, leash and prong with intensity can be a tall order. So e-collar down the line, like you're saying, will be absolutely a godsend, and what I would highly, highly, highly recommend. You just make your life easy, and your dogs will be much more easy to manage, and you'll be able to communicate with them effortlessly. But until you get that leash and prong on all 4 dogs in the house, at least do heel, thresholds, and duration place command, leash and prong on the dogs in the house, and get them all into a very respectful state of mind indoors so you can carry that outdoors. If you don't have a perfect inside, really hard to transfer that outside. And then use thresholds to really shift that state of mind to where they're in a good spot. It's your walk. Kick some butt, set that tone, let them know none shall pass. and you can start to make some good changes.
Yeah. Okay, question 4. This comes from Julie. Julie Eastman on rate. Hi, Laura and Sean again. I love your Q&A Saturdays.
Oh, thanks, Julie.
It gives me a chance to get these burning questions and concerns dealt with to make sure I'm doing everything right to get my dogs in a good place.
They are burning, aren't they?
They are burning.
Okay.
I'm usually asking questions to help my train my bully crossbreed, but this one's for my Dachshund Corgi cross. He's 7 years old, pretty good dog, except when it comes to other dogs. Except for those in his pack. They have 3 altogether. He's reactive with the other dogs, so now he's on a prong and it's helping during walks, and I plan to do e-collar training with him as well. He's obedient, soft, people-pleasing, so the prong's working great. I've also been working on place and thresholds with him, and he's done awesome. Picked it up very fast.
Great.
My question is, when I put him in place, he acts like he's in trouble. I'm calm when I put him there, try to make it exciting or happy, but he looks like a small child put in timeout, LOL. Is this normal for dogs to react this way? He'll stay there, but he'll just kind of stare at the wall or off in space kind of thing. It's odd since the 1-year-old bully breed just lays there hanging out when she's in place. Is this just a personality thing with the Corgi, or is it more of an insecurity issue? If so, what do I do about this, if anything?
Julie. Okay. So we definitely see this in our work here, and some dogs, you start doing work like this and put them in place or ask them to do something, and they jump right into it, and they're like, cool, what's the next piece of information, and this is all great. And some dogs, you tell them what to do. Even if you're being very soft, subtle, and sensitive with them, they having to be in place, having to do something they don't want to do, not being able to just kind of be freewheeling in the house, and you'll see like melancholy, you'll see them like, look sad, something like that. So I think you're right on the money. I really think it is a personality and demeanor thing much more so than a breed specific thing. Because we get pitties that'll come in and that'll be like really all about it and great, and then we get pitties that come in and like you tell them to play and they're like, and they'll do that whole thing. So, and every other breed as well. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you're being fair in the way you're training, and you said you're being calm and cool, and I trust that you are, then I wouldn't
It'll probably fade.
Yeah, I wouldn't sweat it at all. And like Laura says, just about all those dogs we see, they get over it. Yeah. It's like an initial thing of like, it's
uncertainty. I mean, your dog could have some insecurity stuff, just kind of like uncertain, unsure stuff. Yeah. Could be manipulative. There's all sorts of things. Yeah. But my dog Hercules, who's totally cool, he looks
he's
mopey.
A happy-go-lucky guy. Yeah,
he'll look mopey sometimes. Like I'll put him on place and he like gives me the whole like sad thing, and I'm like, you're fine, you're happy.
Yeah, if you ask Hercules to sit, he does like, it looks like you hit him with a stick.
Yeah, and I've never.
We make jokes about it. She's only hit him with a stick like five, 6 times.
Okay, 5.
But he deserved it. He was really bad.
No, I've never done that. And I didn't use the e-collar even for sits or anything. Or just like, and he wasn't abused in his past. He just has like this sort of like mopey, more unsure kind of thing.
Yeah. So like Laura said, it could be an insecurity thing. Like the dog's like, I'm not sure what to do. This is weird. I'm being told what to do. And this is, I'm not really sure about it. Or it could just be a little temporary mopey thing. But either way, honestly, I wouldn't sweat it. I would just trust, okay, we're doing like some very basic, simple training. There's nothing highfalutin. I'm not putting tons of pressure on this dog to do place command. It's all a piece of cake. And then just kind of let it go and trust that your dog will adapt and be cool with it.
Yeah.
You know?
It'll be fine.
Cool.
Okay, question 5. This is from Varun Balakrishnan.
It's a mouthful, Varun.
That was good. My dog shows resource guarding only in certain situations, like when he's under the car or under anything. How do I deal with this?
Hey, Varun. How are you, man? I'm not so sure that this is resource guarding. So what we get a lot of when we see dogs, especially like insecure, nervous, anxious dogs, they'll go and they'll tuck themselves under something, whether it's a car or a couch or a bed, and that's prime biting time. So it's not so much that they're resource guarding that space, they're just kind of guarding themselves, right? So there's a trapped element, they're stuck, they're in this little cave, and they don't want to be reached in, they don't want any more pressure put upon them, so they're really trying to turn pressure off of you going in and getting them out. So I don't think it's a resource guarding issue. I really think it's that a nervous, insecure dog issue that's putting itself in a position to defend itself and kind of set some boundaries like that. Like, I'm going under the car, and no one better come in and get me out. And if you do, it's chomping time. So less resource guarding, more insecure, and probably some bratty stuff going on as well. So what I would do is I would train my dog not to go under cars until if your dog's not e-collar trained, then I would have a long line on that dog if you possibly can, and a little prong collar. And you guys can't see what I'm doing. I'm like, a little prong collar. And then, I would teach the dog place. You could tether the dog to you on like a 15-foot line. So think about it that way. If you're in a situation where you don't feel like you're outside in your yard and your dog goes under the car and that becomes a dodgy thing, put him on a long line and then just tie it to your your belt loop here, and that way if the dog goes under there, you can just call him out and wrangle him out. Now the real fix for that's just kind of a way to circumvent like biting time, but the real fix would be to do like e-collar training with the dog and be able to just recall the dog out from under the car, and then the dog learns eventually, this car thing ain't working out for me so much, so I'll figure out a new way to hang out and deal with things. But until then, if the car keeps working, if it keeps causing you to have a hard time getting him out, and it empowers him to kind of bite and see hands move back, and it looks like it's working, you'll probably see more of that. So I would not let him have access to it. I would put him on a long line and a little prong collar if you're going to be supervising, and tether it to you, and I would train him e-collar training so he gets his little behind out from under the automobile, unless he's going to learn how to fix the car, in which case then I'm all for it. Stay under there all day, right? Just get that oil change, because I got a road trip coming up this weekend, buddy. Right?
All right. Okay, question 6. This is from Jeremy. Oh,
that's 7.
I'm going to abbreviate this question. So he's watched all the Q&As. It's awesome.
Got a Roddy.
Yep, got a Roddy. So he's been using an e-collar, but when he got her, he was on a prong. She's about 1.5 years. She likes to chase shadows. Doesn't matter if I zap her at level 5 or level 60, she'll go back to the shadow every time. She knows place command, and she can do place for however long I want her to, but if there's a shadow, forget it. He's going to be moving into a town, and in that town, she could be very leash reactive when he was using the prong. He'd pull, snap in the air at other dogs and people. So I want to know if there's a way I can get her out of that mindset before I move back. She could be in place and a new person comes around. She'll bark, lunge, and nip at them. And I've been working on this with the e-collar, but then she'll go running to the person. Or when she goes running to the person, I'd zap her and she'll stop and come back, but still grumble and bark. So just lots of little things. He wonders about when the e-collar is on. She knows it's on, and when it's off, she acts up more than if it's on.
What?
So.
Okay, Jeremy. First things first, buddy. Glad you like Q&A. Awesome. Thanks for your question. So if you want to not have your dog be collar-wise with the e-collar, you got to have the e-collar on your dog anytime that you're working with your dog, giving commands, asking for compliance, something like that, until your dog's so thoroughly, deeply patterned that your dog doesn't need to be reminded anymore and is not gambling. But every time you give a command while you're in that transitional period, and you're not able to enforce it, you teach your dog that your dog doesn't need to obey every command, and that there's oftentimes when I don't feel this pressure around my neck of the e-collar that I can actually get away with stuff. That's how they become collar-wise, right? So collar's not on, dog decides, you call him, the dog's like, well, and then realizes, oh, you can't enforce this. Cool. When I don't feel this, I don't have to do it. So that's how you create that. So to do the opposite, e-collar is on your dog as soon as the dog comes out of the crate, or as soon as you wake up, as soon as you're going to give a command, as soon as you're going to work with the dog, and it stays on, and flip it around every 3 to 4 hours so it doesn't get pressure sores. And that way you pattern your dog so thoroughly that every time it hears come, the dog's like, I don't even think about anything else. I just go. Okay, so that's the collar-wise part. As far as place command inside the house, going after, like running towards people, nipping, growling, any of that stuff in the house, that's a lot of monkey business stuff that's not good, especially with a Rottie. That's going to cause people to have accidents in their pants. So that's no good. So let's talk about place command. You've got the e-collar, which is great. What I would do is I put your dog in place. I tether my dog in place, but with a loose enough leash to where your dog can make the mistake, try and break place, but can't close the distance and get to the person. So I don't want the dog even think that it's restrained, but I want you to know peace of mind wise that the dog can't get to the person, and so the person doesn't have to deal with being, bum rushed by your dog. Now, you probably need to use higher level corrections for this Rottie. Rotties are notoriously tough and stubborn and tenacious. So if your dog is in place, first of all, you better be practicing this when people aren't coming to your door. You better be getting that dog so rock solid on place that it'll stay in place. And I think you hinted at that you have it. Your dog stays in place, you can do anything, and it'll stay there forever. Awesome. Make sure that really is the case. Then when people come to the door, dog's tethered, in place. If your dog starts to move, nail your dog. If your dog has been conditioned to know what this behavior is, what this command is, then it's only fair to ask for accountability and say, hey man, or hey lady, I taught you what this fairly means and you're blowing this off. So I'm going to use enough pressure to get you to prioritize this choice that I'm looking for, which is you stay your behind there, because I know if not, this can become a dangerous situation where a nervous dog can bite a nervous person, something like that. So it's nothing to mess around with. So you need, and say she jumps off place, you pop her really good and she goes, bark, and then she doesn't jump back on place. She stays there. Well, now you've got an opportunity, again, correct a little bit higher and then go over and put her back. Ask your guest to go back out the door, give me 5 minutes, come back in, reset it up, boom. What do we get this time? Now your dog learns, if you can repeat, the repetition part is really where the magic's at for breaking through problems like this. Most people only get visitors every once in a while. So instead of losing that opportunity, if she breaks and she's tethered, have your friend walk back outside, set him up. The dog breaks, person walks back outside, we set it up again. What you're looking for is you go to the door, you open that door, your dog doesn't move. And if your dog does, I'm going to give him no and a big firm pop, because that dog's doing dangerous behavior and that dog has been fairly trained what the command means. Accountability time, don't move your rear end off that place, and don't be shy with that e-collar. And if you're going up all the way on the e-collar, you might have too small or too soft of a collar for your dog, because there are definitely dogs out there that, we use mini educators for most of the 99% of the dogs here. But there are occasionally dogs that need more headroom than that, just because they're really, really not very sensitive to it, or they're incredibly drivey or willful. So that's for inside stuff. And then on the walks, I would be asking for an immaculate heel and an immaculate heel. So you said this dog is off leash and doing well, I think, kind of like healing or hanging out with you off leash or something like that, which is great. But in the city, the leash is going to be where it's at, and leashes cause more tension and more feeling of being stuck and more trapped and more anxiety for dogs. So you got to practice with the leash, even outside in the spot where you don't need a leash. so you can condition your dog to be aces with it. I would be asking for the most immaculate heel on leash, that your dog does not move, does not lag, does not move head anywhere past this hip, and doesn't sniff, doesn't pull to anything. And if it does, you're pretty darn firm with this dog. Create the most immaculate, respectful, deferential heel there, and then you got a fighting chance when you go into the city and have to deal with that stuff. And of course, if you've seen our thresholds video, you can do the same threshold stuff that we do with prong collar. You can do it with e-collar as well, which is walk your dog up to the open door, walk right up. You're going to stop abruptly at the threshold. If your dog moves past an inch past your hip, bam, on the e-collar, press and hold for a second, and the dog should back up, and then repeat that exercise until you walk up briskly to that door and stop, and that dog goes watching you, not outside the door and what exciting stuff is going on, but they think about you, they're prioritizing you. That's what I would do for that, and see what you get.
Bang. Knocking them down.
Knocking them down.
O'Shea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this next question, number 7, is Annette Orem. Hey,
Hey,
Laura
Annette.
and Sean. Hey. Thank you so much for all your training videos, articles, and Q&A. They've helped me so much with training my dog.
Awesome.
I have a question
Thanks.
that's based more on curiosity than anything else, really. Can you tell me what the benefit of teaching the place command using pads, beds, or rugs in different areas over training a solid downstay? For example, what if you are somewhere that has no rug to send them to place? Is it okay to train them to do a downstay without the actual place command using the rugs or beds? I hope this makes sense.
Well, the most important thing is I've got some kind of schmutz on my shirt that I don't know what this is. And it looks like, I get food on here? Have I eaten
Probably.
anything that's like frosting like? Sorry guys, but it's
Probably.
like the evidence is freaking me out.
I don't think they can see it.
No, well, I just rubbed it off, but it was pretty bad. I'm sure people were trying to pay attention to the questions and couldn't. Anyways, guys. Okay, so this is Annette. What's the difference between place and down? Okay.
And the value of
And the
that.
value of it. Yeah. That's a great question. It's not a bad question at all. I think every client that comes through has that question a little bit. So, so place command, first and foremost, is more comfortable, right? So we do a lot of duration work. Dogs are going to be there for a long time. So I don't know if I can even like flash this to you, but like hopefully you can see.
Manny.
Can you see Manny? Manny's in place. And there's another dog over here, but I can't quite get all the way over to there. But so you see he's in place, right? And he's on a nice mat. So he's going to be there for a long time. Did I do this all right? I did it right. So he's going to be there for a long time. So, you know, dogs are rugged and robust and all that, but to put a dog in a downstay, like on a hardwood floor or cement for an hour and a half, you know, I just, it's not the most comfortable in the world. So, and a lot of people are using it for inside the house. They have hardwood floors, and it's just a more comfortable thing for your dog. So part of it is a comfort thing, right? So place is a little more luxurious, a little more comfortable for your dog. But there's also a psychological thing, and that's the impact that the perimeter, Laura likes to call it a parameter, but the parameter of place actually has a psychological benefit of holding the dog in that spot. And if you think about it, like being in a downstay, there's no perimeter, there's nothing visually to see that, okay, I'm held here. You're just in a downstay, and then to pop out of it, it's pretty darn easy. You just stand up, and there's no differentiation psychologically or visually of the movement from the spot. Place is very, very clear, especially if you taught place really clearly. That boundary, you almost create like a hot lava concept, which is like you step off here and it's hot lava. So it starts.
Okay, hot lava.
Okay, guys, hot lava. So our iPad just paused right there in the middle of that. So yeah, so with place, you kind of train this hot lava concept, so it creates this real psychological differentiation for the dog about I shouldn't step off here, which has a lot of value, a lot of anchoring, and a lot of sticking power if you've got like a dog that likes to break and run to guests or something at the front door, or likes to try and run under the table and get scraps, then place command will have more holding power. But that said, that means that downstays also have a different kind of value because they're harder to do. So getting a dog to be able to hold a downstay can be more challenging just because it's easier to break. So it has a lot of value practicing that as well. So I think they're both really valuable. Oh, and sorry, one other thing is that, excuse me, place command has to be an object, right? Has to be, it can be a dog bed or a mat. A lot of trainers will train dogs to go onto like tree stumps. I mean, it can really technically be anything. But traditionally when we're training in the house stuff, it's like mats and beds and stuff like that. And then downstays can be anywhere. We can down a dog on place. We can down a dog on the grass, on cement, on the sand, on the grass, wherever you want. So downstays can happen anywhere. Place command has to happen on an object. Place command's more comfortable. Place command has more sticking power. Downstay doesn't, but downstay is valuable because you can use it anywhere and because it's harder for the dog. So get them both rocking and rolling, and then you can differentiate or use which one you want to use depending on the circumstances or situation.
Look at that.
Look at that. Nice recovery, right?
Okay, question 8 from Donna Lamb.
Are we zooming through this? This might be one of our first one ever.
We always say that, and it always turns out to be an hour. Hi, Sean and Laura. Love Q&A.
All right. This is from Donna?
Yeah. Just waiting
Thanks,
for
Donna.
DVDs to come in the mail.
Ooh, nice, nice. Hope you like them.
So we recently took in a 4.5-year-old Jack Russell Milo, and he came with a prong collar, and I think he's going to do really well with the training. My question is regarding my 12-year-old Shih Tzu poodle, Haley. She's very tiny, and I have a hard time getting a harness around her, never mind trying to get an e-collar around her, or collar around her neck. She's tiny, but those teeth are like razor blades. I'm concerned that if I start drastically changing her lifestyle at her age, that she might become resentful and make things worse for her. And when I say lifestyle, I mean she's spoiled rotten. I'm just not sure how to go about dealing with this. I would be happy to just leaving her be and focus on training Milo, but would that work? Would Haley's barking in the background interfere with Milo's training, or would it be a good distraction? Thanks so much for all your help.
Okay, so that's a good question. I mean, if Haley's being a real Schweinhund, I mean, you might, I don't know. It depends if she's making your life hell. If you want to work through that stuff, I mean, you can definitely train her to be in a better space and be less of a snotty patati about things if you want to do that, if it's a priority. It sounds like you've kind of surrendered a bit and you're just kind of like, all right, this one's a done deal. And you want to focus on Milo. So you can do that for sure. You can focus on Milo, but like you said, it can definitely present more challenges, right? So if she's teaching, like dogs are very influenced by each other, and if she's teaching Milo that we bark at the window, we bark at the door, we jump on gas, we, rush the door, all that kind of stuff like that, excuse me, then that can be challenging. Now, can that be a cool distraction? Absolutely, if you're down for the battle, if you're down for for getting in the trenches and really making that happen, because that's what we do all day long here, is try and find ways to make things exceptionally challenging for the dog so their training muscles get strengthened. So let's move this a little bit this way. So you can do it, but you just have to find out for one, how bad is Haley, and then how severely is Milo influenced by Haley, and how much of a live wire is Milo on his own. So if Milo's a laid-back customer, you might not have too much trouble. If Milo is kind of a keyed up, like more edgy guy, you can find yourself having some challenges with that. So what you can do is you can always try, right? So you can just start with just focusing on Milo and letting Haley just kind of do her thing. And then depending on what you get, you can decide from there. So if Milo looks good and he's coming along and Haley's just kind of the devil in the corner, and you can live with that and you're okay with it, that's cool. If she's making Milo a wreck, then we probably need to do something about Haley. That all said, no one should have to live with a dog that's like running their house.
Yeah.
So
she's 12. She may have like another 5 years in her. You might as well.
Yeah, we get older dogs in here all the time that need work, and they're all able to come around. So you can always you can always go to Petco and get yourself, just if you don't already have one, just one of those cheap nylon muzzles. And you could put one of those, just muzzle her up and then put a little prong collar on her and just teach her some basics, right? The muzzle will keep you safe when you put the prong on her. And unless you can't get a muzzle on her, that's a different story. But the muzzle should keep you safe. Get the prong on her. Teach her place command. Teach her how to walk nice, and get rid of some of that bratty stuff. Because honestly, that bratty stuff, even though it's a pain for you, it's not fun for the dog either. So that
She's
dog
barking like that. That's an uncomfortable dog.
Yeah, it's a stressed out, uncomfortable dog. So that would be our recommendation, would be to handle both. But if it just feels overwhelming, or if you can only kind of just focus on one right now, then go ahead, work on Milo, get him great, and see what you get. Report back and let us know how the trials and tribulations of Haley and Milo go. All right, thanks.
Okay, question number 9 comes from Artem, our buddy Artem.
Artem he is the most
the Q&A regular,
Q&A.
Q&A. Artem says, hello, Sean and Laura.
Hello, Artem.
Can you tell us about resource guarding fixing? What do you do usually to get rid of that type of behavior? Thanks.
Okay, Artem. So typically, we do our foundation work no matter what. So we get a lot of dogs with resource guarding in here, varying degrees of severity. Some just need to be told once in a believable way that they shouldn't do it, and they just give it all up. Some are obviously more severe, and it's deep, and it's more dangerous behavior. But all of them get a full foundation approach, a full foundation program, and that's everything you've heard us talk about: all the duration exercise, all the leadership exercises, all the regular obedience, all of the accountability, all of that stuff. And a lot of dogs with issues, a lot of that stuff will fade just by doing that. And then what hasn't faded is typically much easier to deal with. So that's always our first approach. And then what I do from there is with leash and prong, I have the dog with a food bowl, and I will release the dog to eat. And then if the dog is safe, then I've got the leash and prong. And if the dog's really unsafe, then you might need a second handler and a second line on the dog and things like that. So, but we're gonna imagine this isn't anything wild and crazy. So your typical kind of resource guarding, like, and so you got a food bowl, leash and prong on. You're gonna say, you can either say leave it or you can say out. We say out, and then you can just use gentle pressure and just guide the dog out, right? So the dog's in the bowl, and then guide the dog out, guide the dog out. If the dog gives you a bunch of muss and fuss, just hang with it. Just hold the dog back, relax, and then when you're ready, when the dog's calmed down, release the dog back into the food, out. And basically what you're teaching the dog is like any other training, any other obedience exercise, whether it's, sit, down, place, recall, whatever. It's always the same concept, which is gentle leash pressure and guidance. Gentle leash pressure and guidance. So the same thing's going on with out, right? The dog doesn't know what out means. We know what it means, but the dog doesn't have any idea. So you want to teach him. Out means move away from that food bowl. Drop what's in your mouth, move away from that food bowl. Drop what's in your mouth, move away, over and over again until the dog starts to get comfortable with it. And the reason I say move away from the food bowl is I don't just want the dog to drop what's in its mouth. I want out. I want get out of that situation. Get out of that bubble where you're feeling guarding and protective about something. So I'll do that over and over again. And one of the distinctions I like to make is make sure that when you give an out command, and I'm going to get to the second part of it in a second, but is the dog moves and the dog doesn't just because some people the dog will be in a food bowl, they'll say out, and depending on where they're at in the training process, they might guide the dog out, and the dog is still like this, but not over the food bowl. That's still dangerous. Or they've actually given the command and given the correction, and the dog moves like this, but it's still here. Both of those are highly dangerous positions. So you need the dog to psychologically and physiologically out, and you're looking for a state change. The dog out, and then you see the dog relax. You see it disengage from that thought process and become calm, and then you're in a safer mode. So that said, the second part of this is once the dog's really good on the prong collar, then we always go to e-collar. So e-collar is kind of the game changer for resource guarding because it doesn't involve any of the, what's the word, not competition, but the, help me, Laura Morgan, this is... I haven't called on you much, so I need you now.
It's like the more neutral, you mean coming from the handler?
Yeah.
It's not so hands-on.
Yeah, but what's the, not combative, but, confrontational. Confrontational, thanks. So it's not as confrontational, which clearly escalates a lot of dogs, right? So the cool thing about the e-collar is once you've trained the dog on the prong, then you present the dog with the food. You've already conditioned the dog on the e-collar with other exercises, and then You release the dog to the food, nom, 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 and then you say out. If the dog doesn't out, then I'm being attacked by Godzilla. The dog doesn't out, then pop on the e-collar, and if the dog doesn't out with that, slide up a bit, out, repeat the command, don't yell, don't do any spatial pressure, don't move into the dog. The dog knows the exercise, let the tools do the work, get the dog to out away from it. And once again, you're looking for a state change and a physiological removal and a total shift, right? So use the e-collar to create the non-confrontational, safe, person is at a distance, and get the dog to out away from the food. Now, if you do this a million times, you'll find that the dog will not want to eat the food, and that'll be a temporary process, but try not to over practice, right? I usually will only do it a couple times a meal because I don't want the dog to get into this thing where they're like, man, you're just going to out me. It's like, if you do recalls too much with the dog, every time they run away, not run away, but every time they kind of forge out, then they're like, I'll just stay right here next to you because you're just going to call me back. So they're too smart. They know the game. So you want to just do it intermittently, sporadically, a couple times a meal, and then let the dog go. Don't do overkill with this. Now, if there's any concern in your mind that the dog might not be safe, then you got to back tie the dog. You've got to connect the dog to something very, very sturdy to where the dog can't get to you and close the distance if the dog is to get confrontational, is to get worked up, is to get serious. So if the dog is back tied, meaning you've got like an eye bolt in a wall, something like that, and a leash to there, and you know exactly how far the dog can come to you, then that creates a lot of safety, and that way you can just keep the dog right where it's at, do the food thing, right? So imagine, let's see if I can do this with the camera. Okay, so you're the dog, here's the dog. I set the food down. The dog can only come to where its head is at the food, but it can't close this distance because of the back tie back there. And then I can do this, and then I can step away, and then I can have the dog out. And if he doesn't, he can't close this distance and come towards me. But also remember, don't close the distance and try and spatial pressure the dog or do any kind of like heavy physical presentation. You don't need to, and that just adds fuel to the fire. Just be neutral. Out, out, dial up, out. Keep your voice neutral to where it's just information, and let the e-collar do the work. And what you'll see is that the dog will be pretty damn fabulous at outing because he realizes that you don't even have to be next to him to have the power to get him to out, and that you've got infinite control of how much pressure you share, and it's really a game changer. So that hopefully makes sense, is basically the out protocol. Artem, hopefully it works for you, buddy.
Okay, question 10. This comes from Instagram. This is Maloney14.
Where does this come from?
Oh, 7-Eleven.
What is this? What is this episode brought to you by?
Rips.
She's a sweet and sour junkie.
I like sour candy.
She can't find anything sour enough. So if anybody's got any recommendations.
Well, Sean, you found me something that was really sour.
I had to hunt for Christmas. I had to go drive across town to find.
He actually did. He drove really far for that.
They were sour, weren't they?
Were they?
Right, like tears, like sour tears.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So, but if anybody's got any recommendations, we want to hear it. Okay.
Sour. Don't try to send me something that I can buy at the grocery store because it's not going to be.
Yeah. Don't mess with this girl. Send the real stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is from Maloney14.
Hey, Maloney.
On Instagram.
What's that? Sorry, we got Britt in here.
Sorry,
What's cooking, lady?
I just wanted Audrey's. Is it over here?
Yeah.
Should be there, yeah. So Maloney 14 says, I have a 7-month-old Samoyed. His favorite thing to do these days is steal things, usually tissues, paper, and socks. And if he knows he's not supposed to have it, he'll play keep away with it.
Maloney.
Once we catch him, that's not Maloney. Maloney's the mom.
Oh, sorry.
Once we catch him, he gives whatever he has up with no problem. But we have to corner him to catch him. I've tried the trade method, but that doesn't stop him from playing keep away. We are working on leave it and recall, but he still steals things and runs away and turns it into a game. Any suggestions?
Maloney.
Oh, that's the girl.
Yeah. I know, it just sounds good.
Sounds awesome.
Well, Maloney, you've got the situation that I think all of us have found ourselves in with the dog at some position. Yeah. Even when I get dogs in here when they're brand new and they're out in the backyard for the first time, usually they're on a long line, but if somehow they're not on a long line and I'm trying to get them back and I'm like, you just wait a few days. Few days, this won't be going on. You'll be recalling right to me. Yeah. So always remember that. So
picture Sean chasing the dogs.
Get over here
with no clothes on.
Right.
Sorry.
That's a
Sorry.
vivid
I had
image.
to add that in.
Sorry, she means like in the middle, like when I'm trying to like potty dogs before bedtime.
In the
So,
middle of the night.
anyways, that's maybe too much for everybody. So, okay. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have a leash and prong on this here Samoyed, and the dog should have it on inside the house, dragging the leash and prong around. Get a it's probably a pretty decent sized dog. You could get away with the 2.25, which is a small, but I'd probably, depending on the size of the dog, sweet and sour on the ground. And then she gets the sour look for that. And she ate it, 5-second roll. And then, or you could do a 3.0, which is a medium Herm Springer. So 2.25 or 3.0, kind of up to you, depending on the size of your dog. If your dog's like, I'd say like 50 pounds or over, the medium's probably pretty good for you guys. Size it to where it's nice and snug around your dog's neck, up high, behind the ears, under the jaw. Let your dog drag around a leash connected to that prong collar whenever you're home. Whenever you're not home, it comes off just for safety's sake. But it gives you a tool to be able to communicate with your dog in case there's any monkey business, right? Monkey business being the keep away game, the grabbing stuff, whatever it is like that. So what I would do is, assorted silliness. So I would bring stuff that he's interested in chomping and running away with, and I would present it to him, throw it on the ground, see what he wants to do. And if he goes towards it, then I would give him a little pop on the leash, and I would say, leave it, right? If you guys are working on leave it, then leave it. Just don't be one of those owners that we hear all day long. Leave it, leave it. But
especially when the dog doesn't do anything.
They're not, but the owners aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
They just think there's power in that word, leave it. I'm just kind of, that's a little inside dog training joke we hear a lot in the neighborhood. So make sure that you're one of the owners to say leave it, and add a consequence to where your dog actually cares about the leave it. So you're going to say leave it and give a little pop on the leash, and your dog, the pop should be firm enough that your dog actually like spits that out. Or moves away from it, depending on like if it's actually picked it up, or if you're just saying leave it when he gets close to it. So just practice that. But the better thing to do is rather than waiting till your dog gets the drop on you and just grab something, practice with him by bringing the stuff around. Set it up to where you're in the, you've got the time, the patience, you're not distracted by life, and you can practice with the dog a little bit on the leave it. We got a noisy Bella Docious over here. She's growling. Is she growling? Are you growling at us? So set it up to where you can actually get the drop on the dog. Present a bunch of stuff the dog might be interested in, and then start soft on the prong pop and find a level that your dog cares about enough to where it's not overwhelmed, not his life isn't ruined, but it says, wow, okay, when you say leave it, it means something, and I'm going to actually leave this stuff. Then when your dog does do something when you're not watching, or you're not prepared for it, and he picks something up, then you can react, and you've already patterned the dog and conditioned the dog, and it knows what it means. And then you can walk up, leave it, give a dog a little pop, and the dog spits it out. Shouldn't take very long if you're being pretty diligent about being on top of the dog and sharing firm enough corrections that the dog stops picking that stuff up. It doesn't take long to make this happen. Only if you're underwhelming the dog with really soft pops. Yeah. If you're like, oh, I don't want to hurt him, and he's like, that didn't really do anything, then he's going to just pick that thing up. It was like the first time I got spanked by my dad, I was terrified because he'd never spanked me before. He spanked me with a belt, and I won't even share what I did because it was a totally dastardly deed. But I was terrified, and I remember the first time he smacked me with the belt, and I like started to giggle like quietly.
Oh,
I was like, oh my god, this is really soft. Yeah. So and then I played it off, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible. And so my point is just that if the consequence is not valuable,
did you do
like
that dastardly deed again?
Not that dastardly deed, just because I think.
What was it?
I can't tell. Not in this. No, I was a kid. I was little.
I know that makes it. It couldn't have been so bad.
We peed on somebody's porch.
Oh my gosh!
Right? See?
Who's we? Like you and your dad.
No, me and some kids in the neighborhood with somebody we had a gripe. But I was like 8 years old or 10 years old.
Oh my
gosh. You couldn't have pressed charges at that age. So and the statute of limitations.
I bet you didn't
so you
pee totally. I bet you just were like. pee really quick and then ran.
Probably. So anyways, that's way too much information, everybody. I've matured and I'm far better behaved. But when I was a little kid, that's what I did, and my dad pulled out the belt, and but it was great because I was terrified it was going to be horrible, and it was actually, I think he was afraid to do it, and so
afraid to hurt you.
Didn't come with much gusto, and so I did, not that I did the act again, but it definitely didn't create a future inhibition about my dad's correction. So just, I share that story. I shared my heart and my soul and put myself out there for you guys just to make sure you don't undercorrect your dog, right? So make sure that when you do correct, you see a state change, you see your dog look concerned about it. You see your dog go, ooh, I shouldn't have done that. And then you know you're getting somewhere with it. Now, as far as the recall, leave that leash on. You can do a long line if you want to even get fancier, which is just like a 15, 25, 50-foot line. And you can start with a little leash, a 6-footer, and then just let your dog kind of be like facing the other direction. And then you can just say, you know, Francis, we always use Francis. So Francis, come, and then a little bit of a small pop, and then guide the dog in, and then give him a food reward if your dog's food motivated, and then do that over and over again. And then you can go to a longer line, and 15, 25 feet like that, and then you can say, Francis, come, and pop, and then, you know, make sure the pop has enough value to where your dog's like, ooh, I got hustle on over there, and then, hey, you get something nice for it. And if you use a high reward treat, or if you're only feeding your dog for that recall, you'll get some really pretty amazing results pretty quick. So that's what I would do. I would work on the recall with the short leash first, then go to a longer line, practice that, just, you know, practice like 10 minutes a day, like a real practice session, and then just leave the leash on your dog, or you can even leave the long line on your dog and let him drag it around, and then you could recall him around the house just occasionally, sporadically, like you're sitting on the couch and he's over there and you go, oh, let me practice just once while the commercial's on. You walk up, Francis, come, pop, good, all right, come on over here, and then break, release him, let him go do his thing, or put him in place if you're like really doing serious training stuff. And that would be that. So get your recall happening, and then get your leave it happening. But the fact of the matter is that the traded game, those are, to me, those are all kind of monkey business games. Those aren't games where when the chips are down and you want something, your dog's going to cough it up. Those are games where your dog says, do you have something that I want that's valuable enough? No. That's not what this game is. This game is that I tell you when to let go of something, when to cough something up, and what's off limits. And so different training philosophy. Some people don't want to add consequences. Some trainers don't want to have consequences involved with dogs. And that if that speaks more to you, then you have to kind of follow that. But I see the limitations of that every day with owners that come to see me. So consequences are an extremely valuable component of getting better behavior out of your dog, more respectful behavior, and you not losing your mind about your dog repeating behaviors over and over and over again because there's no consequences. Why should your dog stop grabbing stuff that's fun if the worst thing that happens is you get mad, right? Your dog's like, great, I got a rise out of you. This is an awesome game. How about your dog grabs something and you don't get mad and you just say, leave it, or no, and you pop and your dog goes, ooh, that wasn't so fun. Great. And then they start to prioritize different choices. Not going to ruin your relationship, not going to make your dad or your dog sad. And but you just start to create a more respectful, balanced relationship. So that, Maloney, is how I would go about doing that. Guys, I think we've come to the end of 14?
Yeah.
Right? Q&A 14. And, you know, I had no idea that I was going to expose my soul and some of my earliest transgressions against society. But there it is. It's out there. And hopefully you won't judge me too harshly. But I am fully reformed now and an upstanding citizen.
Of course you are.
Thanks.
You're amazing.
Thank you. So that's it. Guys, thank you so much for your questions.
Yeah.
It was a little light this week, actually.
Yeah,
so
but we already have a bunch for today, so...
Yeah, I think there was a weird Facebook thing that happened. I don't think the post went out to that many people.
Yeah.
So typically we get a lot of questions. We didn't get that many. So, but we love your questions. We appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we're really happy to help. And we're glad that you guys keep showing up, and we keep getting great views on these. And I know it's helping people, keep getting emails and messages that people are getting a lot of value out of this. So that's what it's all about, and we really appreciate it, and we enjoy doing it for you guys. So.
Yep.
For me and Laura Morgan, I'm going to sign on out of here. We're done skied.
Bye, guys.
All right. See you guys.
All right, bye.